in the world how cool we were, but we weren't. Greater Houston Convention and Visitors Bureau, very well funded. Been telling people for 40 years how cool we are. We weren't. The difference is, now we are beginning to get things that are substantial and influential. We're beginning to acknowledge the fact that it was horrible, that it was ugly, that the bayou looked like a ditch. And now we've invested tens of millions of dollars in Eleanor Tinsley Park, and it's gorgeous. And you want to go there, and I want to go there. And so, it really, I think, just boils down to acknowledging what the problem is with your product, solving the problem, and then going out there with a proper marketing campaign and showing the world what's awesome about what you've done that's different. So I think that's where we are now, and that's why we're on those lists now.
Very good. So the last question I'm going to ask you guys, we're not done yet, but I just want to plant the seed. What is your favorite brand and why? That'll be the last question. All right, so tell us how you got your start in branding, and what advice can you give our audience about getting their first clients?
So, will you repeat the first part of the question again?
Tell us how you got your start in branding.
Okay, so this is actually a story that I didn't realize existed that I had in my life. I didn't realize it was a real story until probably 3 or 4 years ago when I walked into a Gap store. So I grew up in Mississippi, and there wasn't a lot of culture in Mississippi to put it like, actually, you know what, that's totally not fair. There's an amazing amount of culture in Mississippi as a whole, but in the small town that I was in is what I should have said. There wasn't a lot of culture. And the closest thing that I had that was clean lined and interesting and that appealed to me visually was a Gap store in a mall. Okay, and so this mall was like cookies, pretzels, coffee, Dillard's, Gap store, it was that sort of thing, arcade. And so I actually started collecting cards from Gap stores. So everywhere in Mississippi when I was small, I would always get a business card because Gap had this really cool little relief in the top of their point of sale, like displays, and you could grab a little card from that store. And then by the time it was over with, I had a stack probably this high of Gap cards, and I was like 8, 10, 12 years old when I was doing this. And I didn't realize until just recently that I was collecting like ephemera, like paper ephemera and branded ephemera since I was a kid. I just always kind of connected with that. And that was really the beginning, I think, is that I was attracted to something that I didn't see anywhere else. Believe it or not, the architecture of a Gap store, is actually, it's the only floor-to-ceiling glass and like 90s and 45s that you see anywhere, in my area. And I was just attracted to that naturally. So I think that's how I got my start, was like recognizing things and realizing that there were things that were interesting to me that I didn't see elsewhere. As far as getting the first clients go, that's going to be different for everyone, for sure. I didn't fall into graphic design, but I fell into my first clients. People brainlessly trusted me to do something that they should have never trusted me to do, which I think it probably starts that way with most people, unless you do it really properly, which I didn't. So.
Anybody else want to answer that?
Yeah. Okay. So I fell into what I do by accident. I don't think that I was born to do what I do. It just turns out that there's a couple of things about what I do that I really love. Did not know that walking in. I also don't do design. So each of the people that are sitting here we each do a different piece of, this whole big marketing mix thing. What I do is transmit the message. What I do is I help a company understand what's interesting to the marketplace about this big pile of information that they think is just freaking brilliant, but is mostly boring actually. So I help them identify the cool parts of their story, and then I help them figure out how to tell that to their target. And as far as earning your first client, this is what I would say. Do not be afraid to work for free, and don't be afraid to work your ass off for free. When you're getting started, you don't have a track record, and as much as people might like to sit around and say my time is worth so much, I'm an expert in whatever. Okay, well nobody necessarily really knows that. You've got to build a track record. So my recommendation is, if you want to start an agency, you go find someone that you can believe in, that does not have someone. You convince them to let you work for them. You absolutely tell them, I'm going to do this for you for free. You work your ass off. It doesn't matter how many hours you got to take away from going out at the club on a Saturday night to do that work for months, 6 months, whatever. And once you've got a really great, strong success story, when you've got a case study, that's when people will begin to believe you.
Great answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I really agree with that. I'm trying to think of where I should start in how I became, or how I got into branding. I mean, it started, it's kind of a weird story, but I was working at the mall, and another mall store. Yeah, working at the mall behind this counter, and really it was like right after high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Actually, what I wanted to do was be a rock star. That was really my goal at the time. And I was always into art, but when I was in high school, there was no internet. Like right at the end of high school was when like AOL and CompuServe came out, and we didn't even know what to make of the internet. So this whole like graphic design industry didn't exist the way it does now. So I was always in art, but I never thought of it as a career. It was just a hobby. But I was literally just bored at work at the mall, and I was doodling on some paper, some perspective thing. And the guy came in, and he was like, "Yeah, are you drafting?" And I didn't know what he was talking about. And I was like, "No, I'm just drawing." He's like, "Well, man, if you could do that on a computer, I could pay you like $17 an hour." And this is when I was making $4.50 an hour, so that sounded amazing. So that led me to rethinking things. I said, well, maybe I'll look into computer design and see what that's all about. And eventually led me to getting into this and studying graphic design. Really found I loved it. I never thought of myself as a workaholic until I found this industry, and it became, like I said, just passionate. Worked 24 hours a day on every chance I could. Was really into it, and led to this whole career. And going back to a point that Tyler made, when I first did this, it was so new, the whole computer design industry. People hadn't found specialties yet. I found a lot of people that come out of school now that specialize in print design or specialize in web development, and that didn't exist back then yet. So I just kind of by accident learned video production and 3D animation and web programming on top of web design and interactive CD authoring. And it really did help round me out and understand all these different things and how they fit, and became a really valuable asset when I went into the marketplace to find a job and was able to show, I know a lot more than a lot of other people that were in the industry. And something Dutch said, I think that experience and that willingness to go out there and do favors and take on projects that you've never done before to help somebody out gives you that experience, gives you that credibility and that portfolio to show, and that's what's going to help get you those bigger paying clients.
All right, so second to last question from the audience. As social media becomes more prevalent and personal branding becomes the norm, how can you stand out above the noise and cluttered hashtags?
I think this is super important. It goes right back. In my opinion, it's mixing your personality with your brand. It's you're being personal. And as long as you're kind of being yourself, it's more captivating than you're just selling a product or an idea. It's who you are, and I think that's a lot more attractive than a lot of people give it credit for. I'm not just trying to sell you the candle, I'm trying to sell you the story behind the candle or why I want you to buy the candle. It's not just hashtag candle, it's hashtag soy candle. It's like you're trying to sell something that's more in depth than a lot of people believe. It's not just the facade. And you can stand out really, really easily with your facade, but you can stand out and actually mean something when there's more behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many, the majority of companies are doing social media wrong, but they think that the number of posts that they put on Twitter or Facebook equals relevancy or engagement. But it's really being, we keep talking about this transparency. People smell bullshit a mile away. And some of the best Twitter accounts are the ones that are playful and have a personality. They're responsive to what's really going on, and they're genuine about what they're saying. That's what people follow and what they want to see. They don't want to see GM talking about their cars over and over. I was talking about, your marketing is, your website's you sitting in a boardroom selling somebody. Social media is you at the bar talking to somebody and having a real conversation. And that's the difference. And a lot of companies don't get that. And they try and sell you on social media, and that's not what people want.
It's got to be a dialogue.
Absolutely. It's a back and forth. And that's what's great about it. The companies that get that, it's so powerful to be able to have that dialogue with your customers and be able to talk directly to them. And going back to what a brand is, it used to just be your logo and, whatever mascot you had cartooned in the commercial. Well, now it's actually your personality and that conversation you had, that becomes your brand as well. And that's so much stronger and builds up so much more loyalty if you do it the right way.
I found it interesting that a brand used to be about creating the logo and paying for attention, whereas now it's about, the gateway is starting that conversation through whatever means, makes the most sense, and actually there's so many opportunities to actually get in front of people, and it's not about just putting an ad up or paying for an experience. It's actually just having a conversation in an authentic way.
So was that question about personal branding specifically?
Yeah, the question was.
So about, like an individual's personal brand is really what that I think was about.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm making an assumption that there's also a question kind of hidden in there about audience attraction. I'm guessing that whoever it is that asked that question is really saying, how can I create an online persona that attracts an audience? And I think that the response to that is be cool. And you can tell whether or not your audience thinks you're cool because through social media you will organically attract an audience if you're the bomb, if you're the shit, if you were the bomb, if you're awesome, if you're funny, if you are whatever you're gonna be, you're getting engagement. And a lack of engagement should be very consciously paid attention to as not delivering an effective message and change the message that you're delivering. So in the same way that a company can just continuously post uninteresting things and get no engagement, the same thing, if you're getting no likes on your Facebook post, you're posting the wrong thing. If you're not getting lots and lots of friend requests, you're not telling your brand story in a way that is compelling to the marketplace, and you're getting instant feedback. So pay attention, change if you're not getting engagement, and you'll get there.
All right, great. So last question. What is your favorite brand and why?
Oh man. Actually, I think kind of we go back to the something comes from nothing idea. We were talking about why Houston is kind of cool now, and I think for the